those people will say a sexual act means nothing. If you buy into the sex means nothing, then you have to tell me why wouldn't you like your mother, your daughter, your sister to be a prostitute if it means nothing and earns money?
Hello and welcome to TBH. Today we have with us Father Garcia. Hello.
Hello.
And today we'll be talking about premarital sex. So I think I just want to start off by asking, actually with this whole premarital sex, we kind of commonly know that the church is like, no, don't do it, right? Yeah, but I wanted to ask, is it actually a formal church teaching that is derived from the Bible that it's forbidden to do premarital sex? Or is it more of like practical advice from the church where it's like, don't do it, you won't have healthy relationships and you might have babies before you're ready, that kind of thing.
It is a serious teaching of the church that sex is only right and good within marriage, and therefore, premarital sex will be outside marriage. And is it in the Bible? I think it was kind of a clear teaching among the Jewish people that premarital sex was out, and especially for women more than for men, as in many traditions and cultures, and therefore that's why it was not. It was assumed that that was the teaching, and the church continued and reaffirmed that teaching. I think that's the first. Let us start. Let us start.
Yes.
Let us start there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah.
That is more towards like, you were saying it's more for the women.
Why
No.
Yeah.
It was in all religions and all cultures that are is why, because women get pregnant more often than
Then the
men.
guys can sleep around.
Typically has been morally speaking, has been moral rules, traditional moral rules have been more lenient towards men than towards women. I think that's why women complain today. Fairly so. Yeah. In most cultures, women were expected to reach marriage virgin. In many cultures, it was kind of a requirement.
But not for
Why
guys.
one of not so much.
Oh,
So
really?
it would be nice.
Consequences.
So
of-
What are we saying?
there's this sentence of Elizabeth Anscombe, which is was a very good English philosopher, and she said something quite interesting. She said, Christianity taught that men should be as chaste as pagans thought women had to be. Basically, that pagans thought that women need to be chaste. Men, okay, we don't say anything about them. So that's once again, that's what is the by default understanding of sexuality. You can complain about that, but you cannot deny that, right? So Christianity was the first one who demanded equality for chastity. That
Okay.
thought that men should be as chaste as you expect women to be.
So when you said especially for women, this was the narrative of like the secular world, like the pagan. Right. I thought you meant like the church
Yeah, I
thought
thought
of
you
it
meant
that
the
way.
church.
What do you mean?
No, that's exactly what I mean is that the church started with this thing of equality.
Right.
That if you demand chastity for women, you should demand also chastity for men.
Preach.
So the fact that it's a sin is because it's harming the other lah. So in this case, like if I do premarital sex, it harming the women, the men both are hurt.
How is it harming?
Every immoral act is a harm to yourself.
So maybe why do we deem it immoral? Why is it
Yeah.
immoral?
Because you're choosing something wrong. So let us start by the first idea that doing something immoral is bad for you. It's not only bad for people. So murder is immoral. Murder immoral. We agree on that. Okay, good. That's some grounds.
Well, some might
of,
argue
agreement.
otherwise.
Okay, murder. Okay.
Some might feel it's justified, so murder is right. But okay, anyway, that's a different topic altogether.
So it is obvious that you are harming someone. Okay. So the church says that it is worse for you to be a murderer because you change yourself. If you want to kill somebody, you became a murderer. And this is why attempted murder is not only morally wrong, it's even legally wrong. If you try to kill somebody, even if you don't kill anybody, you are going to go to jail if it was intentional. Why? Why? Because, as I said, the first idea to understand morality is that our decisions change us. So it's not so much the change. I mean, it is important, the change when you kill somebody. an important change has happened. But there is another change that it is very often overlooked, especially today, which is the change into yourself. Jesus said, even when you look at a woman with lust, you commit adultery in your heart. So that change of the heart is what morality is all about. And this is for every immoral thing is something that is bad for you. So the question you were asking is, so why is it bad? And you were expecting me to say it is bad because for the children or to the spouse, because you are doing something bad to somebody, right? That your action has bad consequences. So that's a very wrong understanding of morality. So that's the another wrong question. So expecting that it is only bad because it changes the world in a way that makes the world a worse world. So morality is about the change in yourself. Is that when every decision we make is a change in us. We become better persons or worse persons depending on the use of our free will.
Because I think that a lot of people don't realize that truth, that if you engage in premarital sex, that it harms yourself first. Like, you know, a lot of people will be like, it's not harming anyone, right? I know I know it's against the church, right? But I don't quite understand why. Because we both enjoying it, we both love each other, and it's not harming anyone. But then they are unaware of I guess, the change in them, whether it's a spiritual change or an egoistical change. They're degraded in some sense. And yet, I think a lot of people would still argue against that. They say there's no way. How you know, I'm still the same guy after I have sex with my girlfriend. I'm still the same guy. We go out for supper afterwards and we have a good laugh, or we enjoy supper, you know.
So that's what we have lost. We have lost a sense of morality that has been substituted by utilitarian morality. So this is something very clear, by the way. This is not so we know the philosophers who proposed that, and people are embracing that very openly. And at least people who study some philosophy, they embrace it openly and consciously. And for the rest of the people who don't think very much about philosophy or morality, they just embrace it because it is what is in our culture. So we live in a very utilitarian culture, that the only changes that count, the only changes that need to be taken into account are the external changes, how we change the world rather than how we change ourselves.
So what's the change?
The change used to be called moral character. Once again, let us use murder. I mean, you have never murdered anyone, but every day you think about murdering, you contemplate murdering someone. Wouldn't you say that something is wrong with that person? Something is wrong with you. But I didn't kill anybody. I didn't harm anyone. I didn't even touch anyone. Wouldn't you say that something is wrong with you? Now the question is, what is wrong with you? And the answer, according to my understanding of morality, would be your will is wrong. You are willing something bad. You are willing that people are killed or that people are. Yeah. Is the will something so important? Yeah, the will is the most important aspect of ourselves. What kind of will do you have? Do you have a will that always wills something good, that always wants something good? Or do you have a will that is looking for wanting bad things? That's the most important aspect of ourselves.
Are you saying that having premarital sex, the negative change in me is that I will want to do it again and I will want it more? Is that the change?
That's part of it, but that's not the whole thing. It means that you want sex as something that it is not.
So what is sex meant to be?
Okay, now we reach the other question. So first of all, the first question was the shift in morality, that we have changed from a morality of virtue and wanting something good, of free will and moral character, into a utilitarian morality. That's the first change, right? The second change that tries to answer the question is how we perceive our bodies today. So ever since the 17th century, when René Descartes came into the picture with a theory of how we understand ourselves, how we understand body and soul, or body and mind, is as two separate entities that come together. And this is, once again, this is very prevalent today. Everybody thinks that the body is something we have. Okay, it's like my possessions, my clothes, my tools, and then my mind or my soul is the real agent And so if you ask somebody, who are you, your body or your soul? Most people will tend to say, I identify myself with my mind, with my soul, rather than with my body. Now think about whether that has any connection with sexuality. Because if I can use my tools in any way I want, as long as I don't hurt anyone, now you put this morality of consequences and this understanding of the body. Then I can use my body however I want, as long as I don't hurt anyone.
Mhm.
And that allows you for premarital sex. There is nothing wrong. I'm not breaking anything. I'm just using my body and her body or the other person's body. And why? Because we want it. So with those two things, there is only one moral rule, and it is consent and harm. As long, or you can even remove the harm, because if it is consensual, it is not so harmful.
There's no harm.
Exactly. And that's
or,
it. That's,
or this is something that the person agrees to take on, right? Even if it's harmful.
yeah, so that's the only moral rule today, consent. As long as there is consent, then everything is should be permitted. And if you interfere, then it's an intrusion into the freedom of the person. So the question is not only about premarital sex. Premarital sex is what sounds a bit more intrusive on the part of the church, right? But if you really believe that, I always ask, then even prostitution should be wrong. Now I want you to think about that, whether you really consider prostitution as something that is morally wrong. Most people will think that prostitution is morally wrong. And the best way to check that is, would you like somebody you know, your mother, your sister, your daughter, to be one? Then most people will not like that. But there is no answer, because the morality you are using is you can do with your body whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anyone. Think about this sentence that you hear. It was only sex. What does it mean? When people say it was only sex, what they mean is it was nothing personal, right? It was only something physical. There was no emotional attachment, only something of the body, and therefore something irrelevant, because matter doesn't matter. I think just like you are questioning the church, now I think, yeah, that's fine. That's a healthy exercise, but we should also question our own, the cultures, the dogmas in our culture, to see if we really want to believe them, because maybe it is not true. Maybe our bodies are more important than we think they are. Maybe our morality is not about how we change the world, it's how we change us. And maybe there are people who already believe that, and we should respect their views and their choices.
But some might argue that, like, if let's say I'm in a relationship with someone, and okay, I see sex as like, or rather I see it as like body and soul, everything is combined, and I want to express my love for the person in totality, you know. I don't see it as separate, I don't see it as casual sex, but that's the way I want us to connect. So would that then be wrong? Because I don't see it as separate, and it's an expression of love.
Yeah. So that's where we are now. So that people would say that love, the affection that we feel for each other, justifies sexual activity and justifies living together, or justifies marriage. So that's the element that seems to justify all those things is this emotional connection, or this perhaps even commitment. You can call it like that, right? Because love is insufficient. Do you think that people who are married can love other people?
Can.
Well, if we said that love justifies sex. And
So means adultery is okay.
Yes. But the question is why? What makes commitment or love? So we discarded love already, because we said that that will justify adultery as well. And we don't want to justify that, do we? No? Okay. So,
I choosing my battle.
yeah, okay. So then the next candidate is commitment, right? So people who have, even if it is not explicitly committed, okay, implicitly committed, those are the people that can have sex, right? That's the only rule that is left to me. If casual sex is wrong, okay, and committed love is right, at what point in the relationship is it permitted? After they know their parents? After they watch many movies together? After they travel together? Where is the cutoff line? And there is, with the morality that we have today, there is no answer to that question other than consent. But consent, you can consent to casual sex as well. So consent is an insufficient answer to that question. I enjoy, okay, there's an evil joy, when people discuss about sexual morality without the parameters of the church or any objective parameter, because it is so ambiguous, and there is no clear rules about that. So I have friends who said they're very upset because their ex-boyfriend had sex with an ex-girlfriend only after 4 months. So okay, and I'm like, okay, so 4 months is too short, right? That's why you are offended, right? And you had sex with him after 6 months, right? So 6 months is okay, 4 months is not okay. Why? Where is the rule that says 5 months is the where you draw the line? So where is the line?
Marriage. No, I'm just wondering.
why?
Like you said, no, that's why. Because when you the whole
okay.
time you were talking, right? You're like, at which point is
Yeah.
the commitment like legit, and then sex is now
Yeah, yeah.
morally right, right?
Mm.
I mean, the immediate thought, at least for my small mind, it's just like marriage. But then in this day and age, right?
Mhm.
BTO.
Oh yeah, BTO. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
okay.
has been so diluted.
But
like,
you have
even-
to say this is the mark and this is why. You have to give me. You have to rationalize that. You have to give me a
Yeah.
reason that justifies that.
So because in my mind, I thought marriage is a very explicit commitment. So it's like I'm just telling the world I'm really committed to you. There's no going back.
So,
There's
that's good.
accountability
So
to some
the
extent.
difference between marriage and all these kind of associations like premarital relationships and cohabitation is that it is explicit. The commitment is explicit and public. That is what marriage has than the other associations we have been talking about, which, by the way, applies to same-sex associations as well, because they also love each other with the same kind of love, and they also have this implicit commitment as well. So that's important, that the marriage adds these two things, an explicit and public commitment. So the question is whether that dimension that marriage has and the other associations don't have makes a difference and makes sex right, so to speak, right?
So
That would
the
be-
difference is in the God thing, isn't it? Like when
We haven't talked about God yet.
Yeah.
We are just talking about culture, about the testing ideas and why.
yes. So, but to me, that's what the difference is. Like when you get married, then God comes into the relationship as a union, right? I mean, like, yeah, He joins the couple to become one, and that's the God thing, the spiritual thing about getting married in church.
That's a nice thought. That would imply that only for Christians, premarital sex is wrong. For the rest of the people, it is okay.
What you're saying is then we would be imposing our values and our morals onto everyone, right?
So we already said that in our world today we have this utilitarian morality. So people in the church, they also have a wrong idea of morality, which is obligation morality. That this is so because the church says so. This imposes the will of God, the will of the Pope, the will of whatever it is on you. Okay, and that works for children because they need to be ruled by somebody, and then parents or whoever it is impose their will on them. But when we grow up, we don't want anyone to impose their will. We want to be free. We want to exercise our free will, right? So that would be another wrong. And this is, if you ask many Catholics, so why is premarital sex wrong? The church says so, the Pope says so, the Bible says so, you find it in the Bible. That would be obligation morality, which is, once again, a wrong way of understanding that. Because if the church says so, or God says so, it is because it is so. So you have to tell me what is wrong with premarital sex.
Polygamy was actually like so common and it was practiced, right? But then slowly, like society evolved and then it became a monogamous kind of marriage.
Monogamous culture,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
so is that the way also that, maybe the church is slow in like changing? Like give it some time and then all will be like normalized as well. Like just how like polygamy relationships and it kind of like tweaked into now it's a one man, one wife, one man, one woman kind of a relationship.
So are you okay? The idea that the church is lagging behind with her moral norms, that she was very traditional with the rest of the world. Now the world is enlightened and has advanced and the church is still lagging 100 years behind. That's a very popular idea as well. It's a very popular mistake.
I heard
Yeah.
another friend say, right, they said
Yeah.
that it's outdated because in the past, right, they used to get married younger. So like maybe they
Mhm.
couldn't control the urges, whatever, so then they get married and okay, free game. But then now like we're all getting married later, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can't you trust that the adults have self-control? And then
But it's not the church. It's not the church's fault that everyone's getting married later.
That's true. That's why. So if morality depends on human nature, what is good for you or what is good for humans and bad for humans, depends on human nature. Human nature doesn't change so much with culture, and humans need the same nutrition today than 2,000 years ago, and so morality doesn't change.
Then what about back to Bianca's point about the polygamy and monogamy? You know, it has
What we hope morality is doing is getting better. It changes in the sense it progresses and hopefully gets better and better. And because polygamy was not fair to women, can we agree on that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're thinking. Okay.
I
Okay.
cannot. I must be very
Okay.
careful. of what
Okay.
I'm
So
agreeing.
okay. Okay. Even if they consent, okay, then we are progressing and kind of thinking that we should move away from polygamy, which is interesting because it matches the discussion we are having. Why would polygamy be? Now that you are convinced that it would be unfair to women, why?
I
Gonna share
deserve.
my man.
Yeah, I deserve the attention and love from that one person, right?
Yeah, but he gives you attention from 9 to 11.
No, not enough.
yeah,
All.
not enough. Whole life.
Like I'm, you know, like the Lord says. What is it?
You will leave. You leave your parents. Well, now one.
So-
No, I want to
But
like
that's the key.
with your whole heart,
So
your
that's,
whole
that's,
mind,
that's
your
the
whole
key. So we already found the solution. You want all. You want all. You want the totality of the person. So now we can put things together. So we have been talking about commitment. It seems that when you are committed, even if the commitment is implicit only, it seems to be the line at which most people consider sex right. If you consider your relationship exclusive at this point, okay, now that is the cutoff line, so to speak. Even in today's culture, which is utilitarian, it doesn't match. So this is important. It doesn't match your moral beliefs. You still believe that you can do with your body whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anyone. But then somehow you come up with this idea that no, once we have committed, we are more than friends, and we exclude other people. It is an exclusive relationship. Why is the relationship exclusive? And the answer is what you said, is because we expect a totality in this relationship. That I'm going to give you my all, and I'm not going to be contented with nothing except your all. And in that moment, excludes everyone. So, and this is why you think that polygamy, or you feel that polygamy is kind of unfair to women, because they are given their totality and they don't receive the totality of the husband. So once again, this is an idea that is kind of natural. It's not in the Bible. It doesn't need to be in the Bible. And it's the key to understand all this. And the difference in marriage is that this commitment is, as I said, explicit and vowed in public. John Paul II speaks about something quite interesting, what he calls the primordial sacrament. And he talks about the experience of Adam and Eve, who were naked without shame. Once again, it's not about moral rules, it is about meaning. What does it mean? Why Adam and Eve? Why are we the only animal who feels shame when we are naked? You think about that, this is quite unusual. Okay, we don't need clothes in Singapore, but still we do, right?
But it could be a societal thing also.
Yeah,
isn't
it could be, but
No, like as in if let's say I mean I was born into the world and my parents taught me
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
you
yeah,
need to wear
yeah.
clothes. But if it was normal to like be naked, then I wouldn't feel shame.
if it was purely cultural, which is a very good question to ask, you may expect that some cultures wouldn't.
Yeah,
But it is
and there are, right?
Yeah.
not totally naked. No, there are no.
Not entirely, yeah.
So that's exactly the point, that even cultures that are very naked, they will cover some parts, or even if.
Because it's distracting.
Why is it distracting? Why dogs don't get distracted with other
Our dog,
other
our
dogs'
dog.
body parts? So it's still the same thing. So, and even if in some cultures are actually quite naked, they wouldn't have. You cannot go around poking people's body parts as if nothing had happened, especially those parts. So what do those parts have that we seem to be so careful and sensitive about them?
But things I don't know about shame, but I feel like it's a threat. Like I won't feel
but why?
I won't feel safe being naked because I feel like it will be a potential attraction to danger. You know what I'm saying?
Say, what is the danger? Yeah.
Like anyone can like exploit me, you know. Just minding my own business. I go.
That's exactly the point. So they were naked without shame because they didn't need to protect themselves against anything because there was no sin in them. Nobody was going to look at them with lust. Nobody's going to look at you as an object to be used. But then he expands on that and he says, so the body, the naked body, is a primordial sacrament. And that's a
What's that?
Yeah, what does
primordial
that
sacrament.
mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
What does
in English?
primordial- yeah,
in
Oh,
English,
it's not an English word, is it?
It is lah.
I thought it is.
Primordial
I thought it is.
sacrament.
Okay. So a sacrament is something visible that manifests what God is doing, an action of God that is invisible by itself. So because we don't see it, we are still bound physical creatures that need visible signs. If it is not a visible sign, it is not a sign at all. Okay, for us. Okay, we cannot do telepathy. We are not angels.
When you say us, meaning Catholics.
People,
People,
human
sorry,
beings.
Sorry.
Human beings. We need to see things. If somebody loves you and you don't see actions of love, you don't know. You don't get to know. It's part of our condition, right? So he calls it a primordial sacrament, like the most primitive sacrament. And here is because if you look at people's naked bodies, don't do that very often, but never mind. If you do, they don't make sense by themselves. It only makes sense. Those bits only make sense for a union with the other person. And this, he calls it a sacrament because even if you don't have the Bible, even if you don't have revelation, and there is no way for you to know about God, everybody has a body. And therefore you can read in that body the need we have for personal communion. And that is exactly what God is. So in the mind of John Paul II, the naked body, the human naked body, only the human naked body, because it's the body of a person, speaks of the reality of God, that God is an eternal communion of persons, and so is my body is made to be for an eternal communion of persons as well.
Then the singles how? Back to the question.
Then the
Sorry,
singles
in-
can never
singles-
experience that communion.
Singles still have bodies.
Yeah, but you cannot.
They-
we know they got the bodies.
They can also get naked, and so it applies. The rule is the same.
No, but
I know, but how are they gonna experience
the
it?
communion.
No, but they can see. It's about revelation. So a sacrament reveals. It is something that reveals who God is. The point of John Paul II in that is that we can actually know what God is just by realizing what our bodies are. Okay. So now we go to the experience. Yes, people who experience that, and this is actually once again we go back to the Bible, back to the Genesis, that then Adam experiences at last, this is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, and that happiness in that communion is a sharing in the happiness of God, who is an eternal communion of persons. And if you are single, pues, then you don't experience that. You will have to wait until you die to experience that, which is what happens to me.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay,
how,
together.
yeah, so how do you
It's not
feel?
dissing us.
How do you feel not experiencing that?
Or having to wait until you die to
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
it.
But with that said, I thought we can experience communion in other ways. It's not just about sex, right? So we can
Yeah, yeah,
commune
there's also-
other methods. There's a foretaste of communion with God, right?
There are many forms of communion. This is one of them. Friendship, or
Oh.
It's
also
just
Oh,
like
friendship.
intimacy with people.
you try to foster communion with God in a spiritual way. We receive sacraments that celebrate that communion, but it is not that experience, that particular experience. The point is that this is exactly what the church thinks about the plan of God for sex. But for that, you have to be Christians. So we still have the question. For Christians, then, for non-Christians, then, is premarital sex okay?
Yeah, I think that was my next question. Like, so we understand the Christian perspective, which was our intended relationships that we are meant for communion, and then one way to get it is through sex in a committed relationship. But then to like
Marriage.
in marriage,
So we go back to the meaning of the sexual act. So that if you are married,
Mhm.
it is an act of communion because expresses that communion. The communion is real. So something that means something is because there is some reality that is meant by the sign, right?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yes.
Yeah, my mind just.
Yeah, we're trying to keep up.
It is only meaningful if it points towards something that is really real, right? So it is only a sign of the communion if, in the first place, you have that communion.
And
So if a couple, there is no communion, they hate each other, and they are having sex, then that sex is not telling the truth.
Just now we talked about like the requirements being that you're in a committed relationship and that you like publicly declare, right? So can't like a couple just okay, we commit to each other, we get a BTO, so commit, right? Commit. And then after that, I publicly declare like to everyone.
the
lah.
newspaper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
post
on
to
social
Facebook,
media.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Then
Insta.
means can already lor.
That would be that's what marriage is. It's a public commitment to the.
So can ah.
People have done that. That's what we call weddings. Weddings are that. But you look.
No, but
I
if
commit
you-
herself.
No, but if you don't have like a wedding, but then you just have a BTO, and then you just say on Instagram like, oh, you know, I'm going to get this BTO with this someone, and we're going to live together forever. We love each other very, very much all the days of our lives.
Have sex.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I have never. Oh, have sex, but yes, okay. Oh, okay. So that's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
publicly declare already,
Yes,
and then you're committing,
Mhm.
and you're going to give your everything, your all to each other. Till death do you part.
But that's exactly what marriage is. When if you are really committed, that's what
So
that would be another ritual for marriage. So
No,
all cultures, so there is people get married even if they are not Christians, people get married.
Yeah.
No, so like the thing is, a cohabitation can be something like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just publicly declare that you know you're with this person and you are in an exclusive relationship, and then you just go have it.
Isn't
Do it.
cohabitation precisely the rejection of that?
What
That
do you
we
mean?
the rejection of the commitment that the vow is there, but we don't want to do it.
Because there is no need to do it.
Because some people see it as just papers
I mean,
anyway.
they justify their choice, but it is exactly that. It is that we know people get married, but we don't choose that.
Yeah, because who needs the paper, right?
Yeah, okay, so that's the idea, right? That the marriage is only a paper.
Yes.
Yeah, but marriage is not only a paper. Marriage is the explicit vow and commitment to that person. That's exactly what they try to avoid.
But actually, right, if let's say my friends were like that, I'll be like, but why, if you're already so committed, then why not just get married? You know what I mean?
But
Like
why
if
do
you are
need
so
to?
committed.
So that's the question. Yeah.
But why do
But
you
that's
need to?
so why they don't do it is because they reject that precisely.
But why?
We
What do
don't
they
want
reject?
to commit to that level because
Uh-huh.
why life is complicated. Who knows if
But
in
you
10
just
years.
don't. Maybe you just don't want to conform to an institutional kind of thing, right?
Mm,
Nowadays, like you just want to be indie and you just want to like, you know, I can do my own thing. I don't need like
Release, yeah.
institutions to like tell me what to
I
do.
make
Like,
my own rules. and
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's what makes marriage is precisely the vows, the quality of the vows, that I will commit to you unconditionally. When people don't accept that, it's because they want to be free from that commitment. That's the only reason why people would avoid that.
Like a way out, lah.
Maybe some of them because they say, okay, life is complicated. We don't
Yeah.
know what is going to
Give
happen in
themselves
10
a way out.
years.
It's like, oh, we really tried,
Mhm.
but
Who
it's
knows?
not for me. So then it's a lot easier to just go separate ways. So there isn't that, finality to it, I guess.
So first of all, the marriage is not a paper. So implies a paper in today's society. So we have marriages before we have a state. We have marriages before we have it's like the first kind of social institution, if you want. Even before it was a legal institution or a institution commanded by the state. And it is about precisely that now we engage in rights and duties, and we are responsible before society. That if I abandon you, I am accountable to that. And if you abandon me, you're accountable to me. That is what marriage is.
But some Christians also describe sex as a religious experience. To some degree, maybe they kind of understand where we're coming from in terms of like it's a communion, right? I mean, that's one group. So what's the other group where it's like they don't see it as communion?
First of all, let us try to go back to our distortion of cultural distortions. If you remove the body is only material, and you remove the morality is only about consequences, right? And you substitute them for something a bit more sound, which is our bodies is what we are. It's not something we have only, something we are. Then the intimacy of the body should stand for the intimacy of the person. And that explains the naked thing, the same. And that explains why if you go to the bus and somebody goes and tries to hug you, you are going to say, this guy is crazy, leave me alone, please keep your distance. Because naturally and spontaneously, it has nothing to do with culture, it has to do with how we are made. We give access to our bodies. The more intimate, the word intimate comes from Latin intimus, means innermost. So if you draw a line, you can shake hands with strangers and nothing happens. But the more intimate, the more inner you go into your body, the less access you would give to that aspect of the body. And that's something that all cultures experience. We don't go around poking people's body parts. And we have this selection. Like, hello, we are strangers. A handshake is going to do it. Okay, don't hug me and all that. But we hug family members, people who are a bit closer to us. So if you follow that thought, then you will reserve the most intimate aspect of your body to the most intimate person in your life. So until that intimacy and that communion is real, the expression of that will be a lie. So whenever two people are having sex and they're not married, they are meaning something that didn't happen. Your bodies are saying we are committed to each other totally because there is nothing more intimate in the body than that. And if we have joined the most intimate aspect of the body, it only becomes truthful if you are committed to join every aspect of your life with that person. And until you have done that, this sign will not speak of that. It will not be as truthful. Does it make sense? So obviously premarital sex is more authentic, it's less of a lie than casual sex. Because in casual sex, there is no communion, there is no union, and there is no desire, and there is no commitment. So it's a total lie. Your bodies are speaking. We are uniting our intimacies, but there is nothing true about that. But those people will say a sexual act means nothing. If you buy into the sex means nothing, then you have to tell me why wouldn't you like your mother, your daughter, your sister to be a prostitute if it means nothing and earns money? Why would you have any objection to that?
So for singles who don't have anyone, because I mean now if they choose, not to have this sexual act, but yet the desires are still there, and we are made that way, right? And we should not. I think there are two schools of thought. It's like one can view that the body is evil, or these desires that come up within us are evil. Like what would you say to that? How do we manage
These
it?
are very common heresy in the church. The church believes that our bodies are created by God, a part of creation, and as once again we go back to the theology of the body, it's not only something good, it's not only something permissible, it's something that actually is sacred, something actually that speaks of God. It's a primordial sacrament. It's something very sacred. That reveals the very being of God. So there is nothing wrong about sexual desires. There is something wrong about lustful desires. The more lustful desires they are, the less authentic desires they are. So this is why chastity is a need, and this is trying to answer the question that we live in a culture in which chastity is something for priests, and once again, it's not. Chastity is something that you need it more. The more you have for married people, mainly because now you have to decide when it is right to have sex and how it is right to have sex. For priests, we don't have that problem. We don't have to decide when it's good, when it is never good, and all that. So our chastity is not as complicated as marital chastity and premarital chastity. So there are two kinds here. We have two kinds of virtues, if you want. So that if you understand that this is what sex is all about, it's about telling with my body that I really committed to you. I'm here for you. Totally, with my intimacy, and I want your intimacy as well. Then you have to start to educate yourself and prepare yourself for that. And if you are already married, Now the question is, yes, it will be true every time we have sex. It is an expression of our true commitment that we are really living together and we are journeying together and all that. But just because it is true doesn't mean that it can be done in any way, anyhow, anywhere. You have to take into account all those consequences, all those circumstances. And this is where you have to refrain once again. It's not refrain. You have to continue to purify yourself from lustful desires. This is not about you. This is not about you taking advantage of this very gratifying action. It is about expressing love.
Why so complicated? Why is sex so complicated? Cannot have it before marriage. Even in marriage, you must think, is it the right time or not? Is it the right condition or not? Why cannot just
Because we have to hold ourselves to a high
people are
standard,
complicated.
I guess.
So there's the more personal you think sex is, the more complicated it is because because people are complicated.
Yeah. Maybe people make it complicated.
If you want to be simple, you have to be a priest or something.
Can I ask, do you struggle? Is it an okay question to ask? Like, do you struggle? I mean, in your singlehood and
Struggle with what exactly? Loneliness, the desires.
the desires, maybe.
I think everybody struggles. So no matter where you are, and this is another thing that is important, is that people think, oh, if you are single, you are struggling, but if you are married, then the sky is the limit. And as we now know, as we now know, it is not that is not the case because it's just the different challenges. So married people have challenges, when and how and all that, and single people also have challenges because we are not supposed to do it, and if you do it, then you have to deal with the guilt and the repentance and all that. So we all have challenges. It's just the difference in challenges. It's not. I don't think it's about more or less. And of course, there will be people who will become happier in this situation than the other situation, and the other way around. So I don't think it's a competition to see, okay, these people got the better deal. I think it's challenging for both. The question is, what challenges are better for you? What challenges are less challenging for you or more fulfilling for you? And that's why people need to choose the state of life.
I think for me, the struggle is more of trying to understand what exactly do I desire. So sometimes, I mean, I do struggle with lust and stuff like that, right? But I think it's trying to figure out, like, do I want sex or do I want, like, an intimacy that actually sex is, like he said, like, it's expression of. So sometimes when I see people, right, they're actually, I was very naive. I thought, like, people my age, or at least the Catholics, right, they don't have sex. They're fine. They all wait till marriage. No, then I realized in reality, they're all somewhere doing it. I don't know. So, like, when I realized that, right, I'm like, I mean, not saying that I feel like I'm missing out, but to some degree, I'm like, I kind of desire having intimacy with someone. And maybe one day we will be having that union, I guess. Yeah, so sometimes as a single, it's just like, okay, no, it's lonely. Yeah, that's why sometimes I say to y'all, right, what's the big deal about sex? But actually, maybe for me, it's more like, not so much sex is the big deal. It's just like, I just want the intimacy. Yeah, that's why, like, when you were talking about casual sex and everything, actually I feel kind of sad for people who do it, mostly because I feel like, why are you settling for this when you could actually attaining something much greater, something that you were describing, like that's just that union with your wife and everything. I'm just like, why y'all just settle for this when you can have so much more? Not even the whole religious godly aspect. It's just like you can have so much more. A relationship can be so much more meaningful. Yeah.
I do feel like the moment you have sex when you're like in a relationship but not marriage, right? Somehow it kind of taints it. You kind of like crossed a boundary that you are not meant to. The relationship is no longer as pure as what it was meant to be.
I think we need to clarify that lust is not sexual desires. People usually they usually identify one with the other. I always say it's exactly the opposite. Sexual desires by nature, they tend to go to the totality of the other person. I want all of you. And lustful desires is, no, I don't want you. I just want this from you. Whether it is male or female, so there are differences in, as I said, men and women tend to get something else for women tends to be more the emotional gratification than the physical gratification. For men tends to be more physical, but it's the same. There's still lustful desires. It's just like we demonize very much male lust, and we say men are horrible. They're just like animals. They only want the physical thing. And women, yeah, because it is emotional, it's supposed to be better. Why is emotional better than physical? So it is still lustful desires. You want the emotional gratification from this person, but you don't accept the whole person. And that's what I think sexual acts should be in marriage, should be an exercise of I want your totality. I don't want something from you. I want all of you, and I have to be to make sure that you get the same message in this action.
If someone, after watching whatever we've all shared, right, and suddenly, let's say they're in a relationship and they feel, okay, I'm ready to abstain or to practice chastity, but their partner is not in that same space. They're still in the whole like, sex is sex. Why can't we just do it before marriage? How can they actually start this conversation with their partner?
Like, you just got to be honest, and you got to, because okay, let's say they were having premarital sex, right? For example, the guy wants to stop having premarital sex. He's got to be able to explain to his partner why he wants to stop. You can't just say, I want to stop because God said cannot, right? So then he has to be prepared to explain his journey and the reasons behind it and what he hopes to achieve, what he hopes that it will do for the relationship. Maybe I think that it will bring us closer together, or it will take us to the next step, right? If we stop having sex, and explain it that way.
So what happens if the partner is still like, nah, man, this is bull. I don't agree. Would you advise the person to like, maybe it's time to leave them?
Yeah, I think that would happen naturally. Yeah, it can get complicated, because then the next obvious question is, well, what is the definition of sex then, right? Are you talking about you don't want to have penetrative sex? What if we have other kinds of sex, So then, again, that will cause in this example, the guy to have to ask the difficult questions. Where is his journey taking him?
If you're on this journey, it's good to have same gender accountability partners who can, then walk on this journey with you, because I don't think it's easy. When you go back home, maybe you fall again. But I think it's just having someone to journey with you, and just ensuring that you're progressing in a certain way, in a certain direction that you hope for, and be there for you when times are difficult also.
I think don't put yourself in a position where you're likely to fall. So, like, so
That's
when you
true.
say, okay, go back home then, like, into your room together, lock the doors. Obviously the temptation's higher,
Yeah.
as compared to like being in the living room or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, don't stay over. Don't look for the edge as well. Don't sit on the couch and look for the edge where like, oh yeah, we should stop now. Just try. It's so hard.
Yeah.
The truth is, it is so hard, because at that age, and you're all just
Raging
you wanna get
hormones.
it- you want to get it on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but so to have those ground rules from the start, and it's like a no compromise, right? This is it. Like, we're not having sex till we get married.
So it's like knowing your triggers and then setting the boundaries for them. Yeah. I think it's also exploring what other forms of intimacy you can have. Because from what I'm hearing, it sounds like physical intimacy can be very strong, I guess. Very hard to like resist. But maybe couples can explore like other ways to be intimate that's not physical. I don't know what it is, but maybe they'll have their special. Maybe share your feelings. Find a shared hobby. I don't know.
We think that chastity is abstinence. It's not. It's a virtue. It's a skill. Abstinence is not doing something. Skills is learning to do something, and it's a very different ball game. Abstinence without the virtue of chastity is nearly impossible.
I think sometimes like people think that chastity is like grace, like
Yeah, we need grace for all the virtues, but the definition of abstinence is you don't do this. But it's very different if you don't do this because it doesn't even spring from you, or you don't do this but you are the whole day thinking, how could you do this? Okay, understand what I mean? So there is a difference between self-control and virtue. The more virtue you have, the less you need self-control. Does it make sense?
You're getting better at the virtue.
Does it make sense? If I am an alcoholic and this is whiskey, I have to exercise self-control, because there is something in me that wants to drink, and there is something in me that doesn't want me to drink. Like, I'm now in public, and it would not be very nice if I start drinking whiskey now. So I have to fight that. I'm constantly in this tension. But if I am not an alcoholic, I don't need to control myself, because there is no right. I don't have a desire for whiskey because this is not the right place and probably the right amount and the right time. So that's what the virtue is. That you don't need self-control. When you acquire that, then then you don't, once again, you don't need to fight anything, but there is nothing to fight. There are a difference between the chastity for single people, chastity for people who are dating. And the added aspect is that you not only want to be chaste, presumably if you want, what you also want is to help the other to be chaste as well. So once again, if you are playing the game of lust, is how much can I take from that person and get away with it, okay? But if you are playing the game of being chaste, don't you want the person you are going to marry to be as virtuous as possible? And are you an obstacle to her virtue or his virtue, or are you someone supporting his or her virtue? And if you are doing that, then first of all, you know that you are not alone, that someone who has your interest at heart as well, and is supposed to help you. Even if both of you fall, and you still have, hopefully, this understanding that, yeah, I should help you instead of making it more difficult for you. And therefore, it's good for me to know your boundaries, it's good for you to know my boundaries, so that we can help each other not get too close to the boundaries. And that's an exercise precisely in really, if this dating game is a real expression of love, of I am interested in you, and I'm going to help you, even if it takes a sacrifice on my part, rather than how much can I take from you before we get married.
Thank you for watching TBH. Tell us what you think and what other things you would like us to talk about in the comments below. It's 2024, so you know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the notification bell.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I thought bye-bye.
But you know, nowadays, there's also like, I feel like there's a lot of couples, or I mean married couples, right? Who maybe want to explore. So like they want to have like threesomes, like they want to make their
Lulu
sex life more exciting, right? Because it's become so mundane or so boring, like you kind of know what to expect, you know, kind of know. And I feel like that is where the sexual awakening or whatever needs to happen. So now we're saying that, okay, you are in a marriage, but then is it right or is it wrong? Is it okay to bring someone in to kind of like spice things up?
I mean, the gut feel is that it's wrong.
I know, but as in like,
You know.
but I mean,
It boils down to what does this mean? What is, so if you think that what sex is about is to have some spice in life and some
then where does it end?
gratification, then that's what you should do.
You're just chasing the most extreme
Yeah,
form.
that's what you should do. If you
okay, I'm not
think
the
that,
one. I'm not the one. Okay, I'm not the one. Yeah. So like when you're dating, it's just like, oh, you know, I just want to be loved. I just want to have someone to love me. You know, someone to be there for me. Someone to, you know, to share my life with. So it's a lot about me, right? And I
did you notice there the lustful desires there that
is that lustful?
You want it for me.
if you want this relationship for my gratification,